Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Two Geeks Talking is an entertainment industry interview show where we interview the creative people from the comic, film, TV, movie, and video game industries. And of course, I'm your host, Kurt Sasso. We're joined today by a very talented Canadian comic creator and artist, and writer, for that matter. She has created a wonderful set of stories based off of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. We're joined today by Mary, and I will not even bother pronouncing your last name. I'll let you do that yourself.
If you're all curious, it is Kapogeorgakis.
Oh,
I'm Greek.
that being said, now that we're back on the interview itself, thank you for coming on the show, Mary. I really appreciate it. For those that don't know what the comic is about, tell us what it's all about.
For people who have read the book, and even if you haven't, I really recommend it. It's by Robert Louis Stevenson, and it's his very best work, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It is an adaptation my way that's significantly more lighthearted. It has a much lighter tone, and the theme is more superhero. And above all else, just to give you an idea of how different it is from the source material, it's not Dr. Jekyll is good and Mr. Hyde is bad. Both characters are good. They're just different kinds of good, and good does not imply sainthood or perfection.
It's also interesting. It's like a hero anti-hero situation as well, too, between the two characters.
It is, and like I said, good and evil have different shades. It's not, I'm just good because I have to be the good guy. This is my role. There's a motivation that's personal and sometimes impersonal. And with that said, it deeply affects how a character acts when it comes to being good or evil. It's not black and white.
No, for sure, and it's great that you're fleshing out your characters as you are, because it's not just about Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You have a wide variety of characters that are all interacting, to be honest, much more normally than I usually see in comics, which is great from a writing standpoint and from a reader standpoint.
Thank you. That was a huge aim of mine, actually, because one of the tropes I always hated in most medias of which write about the Jekyll and Hyde trope or the tale in general is that they forget that every action has a consequence. Everything you do affects other people. And I really hated that we never hold Hyde in particular accountable for his actions, especially when he says or does something that's really terrible. It's, in my opinion, it weakens the hero and it makes him kind of Mary Sue-ish and uninteresting, and I hate to say it, hateable. I never liked heroes that could get away with murder. Like, what's the point of making them the hero if they're like that and don't even feel remorse for the right reasons?
Realistically, it's like you take all of the classic superheroes that everyone's grown up with nowadays, like not even talking about the myths from the Greek mythologies and all of that other stuff, but if you take like a Superman or Batman or whatever, they have killed in the past, and it's like, nope, they're good guys, we're fine.
Yeah, I love Superman, Batman, The Flash, and all of these heroes I grew up with, but I say this out of love. I don't like that aspect of writing. I believe every action should always have a consequence, for better or for worse, and I'm happy to say that even those characters now in more modern writing, we're holding them accountable for their actions, even for the wrong ones, even if it means saying you did something wrong and you have to make reparations.
Talk about how you started this comic. I mean, obviously the love of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the book source material itself is definitely a great starting point, but what drew you to the actual novel itself?
Actually, it was really just a stroke of luck, really. I was online one day playing a free slot machine just for fun that was Jekyll and Hyde themed, and it was very goofy and Disney Pixar style. And just for fun, I wrote a fanfic that was Jekyll and Hyde of what it would be like if Disney tried doing this. It even included some songs, lyrics, and all that. Obviously, I stink at music, so don't ask me to try singing these things. But the point is that it really was a stroke of luck. But I fell so far in love with the story and realized, hey, this is actually something worth telling, that I made it into a comic and decided not to just stop at one book, but expand it even more. because there's always more to tell, though now it is nearing its end.
Oh, really? It's a pity because I went through your entire archive and I really enjoyed like just the nuances of every single case, as you call it, or book. And it's just really interesting because you've really done I think a great service to the characters and the surrounding cast as well too. Is there a reason why you're stopping eventually or soonish?
Well, first, thank you very much for the kind words. It always makes me happy, and it makes me feel very flattered and encouraged to know that people feel the way they do about my writing and that I made their day a bit better. But first of all, because it's nearing the end of its objective. The major point of my take of Jekyll and Hyde was that to expose the corrupt board of governors, and by the end of book 3, that's going to be done. So I don't feel it's right to stretch the story any further or tack on seasons, so to say, that don't make any sense and don't contribute to the story as it is now, because better to just stop it while it's short and sweet and while people can remember it fondly. And maybe, just maybe, someday in the future, I'll get back to it and add a sequel in a way that will make sense and be more well thought out.
It's almost as if, TV these days should be taking a page out of your book, figuratively speaking, so that they don't keep dragging you out like they did with the U.S. Office.
Well, thank you. And yes, I noticed that huge trend on TV, and it's one I dare not repeat. I also wanted to add that even on a personal level, I want to move on to other projects, and I have so many ideas. I don't want to do the same thing my whole life.
What else do you have in mind, if you want to talk about it or not? It doesn't.
Honestly, I could make a webcomic just listing all the ideas I have. But immediately after Jekyll and Hyde is done, my idea is a much lighter tone and based on the Great Bake Off tournaments I see online, and also it's highly inspired also by the old age 80s cartoons I used to watch as a child, and how my lifestyle has really changed and so have my interests over the years, and how I'm at a point where I'm really happy with the person I am now, even though it was different from the original plan. I call it Cupcake War Machine. As the name implies, it is about a war machine android named Warwick. Yes, his name is intended to be a pun, who gets recycled, for lack of better words, to be an assistant baker. And obviously, he's not happy at all about his situation, but he has a chance to kind of get out of this situation, but only if he plays nice for now, which is to participate in a baking tournament that if he wins, one of the many grand prizes is to have any wish granted he wants, and that is, for now, to be remade into a war machine. Will he win? And if he does, will he go through with that wish? And if he does, where does it go? We'll see.
Sounds like icing is going to be flying all over the place.
Only icing?
Wow, I'm sure other baked goods as well, too.
I can assure you that even in real life, these tournaments people can get pretty emotionally invested in them, but such as with any art, when you're invested in something, it's going to be personal to you. Also, it is just meant to be funny.
Talking about 80s cartoons, though, I mean, that's the decade I grew up in as well, too. Obviously we have our favorites in general, but what about which 80s cartoons, and you can name, say, 5, I guess, that kind of influenced you in your style?
It had to be a lot of the Looney Tunes, for one thing. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, He-Man, G.I. Joe, She-Ra, and as weird as it is to say, if anybody remembers this cartoon, the Filmation Ghostbusters and the real Ghostbusters.
I think I remember the real Ghostbusters more than the other series you mentioned.
Yes, the Filmation. I find it's a hidden gem really worth checking out. However, I should also point out that the writing back in the day, especially when it came to character depth and how characters were treated, nowadays we would see how problematic that is, and I intend to point that out in Cupcake War Machine. It's one of the very few serious sides that I intend to explore. That, for one thing, throwaway characters. Is it right to treat a character this way, that when they die or leave, we just pretend they don't exist anymore because they're not useful to us anymore, like a tool? Is this the way you treat your friends?
It sounds like lazy writing, to be perfectly honest. Like they wrote themselves into a corner, or the character they personally didn't like, but maybe the fans enjoyed.
That, and also back in the day, and my older brother has pointed this out, God bless him. Back in the day, a lot of these cartoons were made to sell toys, so a lot of character of the days, whether they were heroes or villains, were really disguised as toy commercials, which is another thing I don't like.
Yeah,
A character is a work of art to be respected within themselves. If they're not serving a purpose to the story, just cut them out. It's what I do.
it's almost like the George R. R. Martin of character creation. Well, I mean, you kill off a character that everyone likes or that you just, want to finally get rid of, and there you go. Away.
Well, I don't like killing them off, but what I do is that I either just don't keep them, or I don't put them in to begin with, which is even smarter. Keep the cast short and sweet.
What are the challenges, though, of writing multiple characters, especially when you have supporting characters with your main cast? Because I'm writing a script right now, and here's what I'm running into. I have like 2 main characters, but I have like 6 sub characters, supporting characters. And it finds like I'm trying to intertwine multiple stories to fit the main view.
The number one tip I have is that think of what you want each of these characters to be like on their own. Can they stand on their own to begin with, or do they need to completely depend on the main characters to exist? If your answer to this is yes, then that's not a well-written character, not even a supportive character. A character must be entertaining on their own 2 feet. If they can't be that, then they're not going to add to the story. They're going to feel like a written-in, I don't know, a self-insert, or just very amateurish, or they'll get grating on the fans' nerves. That's the best way I could put it. No matter what their personality is, what their role is, or what their relationship to the character is, can you make a story or even just one chapter about the character all alone, and they can be interesting on their own? Well, it goes back to the throwaway character. Is this character disposable or no? Are they actually important? And part of importance is, are they valuable to themselves?
So with what you've created now, have you done other comics before, or have you just been a prose writer, or like how did you become as a creative individual of yourself?
At the risk of sounding cliche, it all started back to my childhood. I used to write fan fiction a lot. I mean, I'm sure a lot of us have, and maybe still do. It's how we practiced our writing. And I started writing comics just for fun. And since I started it, I never stopped and realized I really like this medium of making art and drawing. And I liked action. I liked fantasy. I just liked the fantasy world in general. And also drawing, I liked creating expressions. It was just fun to me, and whenever I did it, it felt like this was the calling I was meant to do.
And have you been doing this long? Well, you said all your life, obviously, but when did you decide to start making Jekyll and Hyde?
Well, it was actually 4 years ago, and ironically, around the time I met the man I'm married to happily now. And honestly, through Jekyll and Hyde, I rediscovered my love for comics, because I had put it on the shelf for a while. But then after a while, after really getting into it, and even my own wonderful, supportive husband, seeing how much I love doing it and how happy it made me, and how this felt more like my calling than what I was doing at the time, I talked a lot about it with him, and I decided to just stop doing my old job and devote myself to comics full time like I originally intended to.
Have you done any comic conventions or anything like that? I mean, obviously not recently because, pandemic and all.
I've tried to sort of plan for it and actually save money for it, but in the end, I couldn't because you know how life is, especially when you're a stay-at-home mom, you have to put your priorities in order, and also things happened in such a way where I haven't done it yet.
Mhm.
But I intend to. I
Yeah.
mean, just to give you an idea of how hectic my life became, just last year I gave birth to my son,
Oh,
cutest little
congratulations.
baby boy in the world, and he's becoming 1 year old next month. But that just gives you an idea. He takes priority even over my comics.
That,
So I can't go to a convention unless I'm sure he's going to be in good hands for the day. And he's independent enough away from me to be able to be away from his mom for that long. Because I mean, he was just 1 year old. He's not a 21-year-old, or rather, he will be 1 year old.
oh, that's great. Yeah, I'm sure it is definitely difficult with the work-life balance for sure. But
It
hey,
is, but it's like any other work-life balance. You find a way when you want to.
how are you using social media to not only promote yourself but to promote your new projects?
Well, I'm promoting my main project now, mostly, which is Jekyll and Hyde, because my aim is to get this in print and not just on the webs. So as soon as it does finish it, I am finished, sorry. I am going to start promoting Cupcake War Machine the same way and just as hard. Every time I have an update, I post it on every single one of my social medias. I go to Comic At, I go to Webcomic Exchange, I offer rewards on Patreon, and I even do commissions. And of course, I just get out there by doing what I'm doing now. I talk to people, I try to get connected. Well, that's the way it is on the internet, isn't
That
it?
is true. Yeah, yeah, lightning in a bottle somewhere. But no, it's good. It's good that you're utilizing social media and connections. You're right, like interviews, like using Twitter and Facebook, TikTok, whatever.
And of
Work
course, helping my fellow comic creators.
and
I
yeah,
mean, you can't ask for help and not give help in return.
self promotion and promotion of others. It's just the way the world works. I like it.
Well, yes, it's otherwise, if you're only out to help yourself, that's a very selfish way to live, and in the long run, not a very happy one to live.
With everything that you've done with the comic, looking at your art style from when you started 4 years ago to today, how do you think you've improved?
I think my style has gotten a lot cleaner, and I pay more attention to details like little things like the eyes, the shading, the colors, the textures, the highlights, and most importantly, I've completely changed the way I do the speech bubbles. Before I did them by hand, now I do them digitally. And even more importantly, I added backgrounds which really made the pictures pop.
No, I've really enjoyed this last chapter for sure. I just love the differentiation between Hyde and Dr. Jekyll for sure because it's and you're right. The text itself is definitely a lot cleaner and clearer. Um, are you planning on going back through the archive and updating the speech bubbles like you have currently?
I do intend to go back and remaster a lot of the pages, and I think for book one in particular, I may have to even redo the art entirely in order to really make it clean because some of the work that has been done, you can't just go put a digital eraser to it and redo it. It's a little too hard. I don't know how to say it. You just can't do it.
Yeah, no, I get
But
it.
maybe for book two, I can just merely remaster it. But for book one, I would have to redo everything entirely. But that's further down the future. I would rather take a break from it once it's all done and look forward to doing Cupcake War Machine. The most I'm going to do with Jekyll and Hyde for now in the immediate future is finish it and redo some of book one's cover pages, especially the book cover itself, because compared to what I do now, compared to what I used to do, it's changed and I want to people to be more enticed to see what I can do by putting my best foot forward.
No, for sure. And it'll be good for the conventions as well too. When you get to one, and you'll have like book 1, 2, and 3 all together, and it'll be great to sell it as a package and get the public's hands on them.
Definitely, my aim is to get my books on the shelves and to, of course, write for as long as I live.
So with Cupcake War, is that going to be a 4-year stint as well, or do you kind of have a general idea?
I can tell you this from now, I don't
Information.
intend for it to be as long a story. It will probably be just one book long, and after that I intend to do another project that was in the works for a while in the back of my mind.
Any hint on that one?
Yes, actually. Get ready for it. It's also got a bit of a long name. Bride of the Barbarian.
That's a good name. I like it.
Basically, it is a bit of a satire on those romance novels and also the Disney princess romances and how love does not happen at first sight. It takes time, and sometimes the person we think is not our match is exactly the person we need, and the person we want is actually the person we should avoid. And like the name implies, it's about a princess, and not your average princess. She's a bit of a bad girl princess, very spoiled, very selfish, very materialistic, and doesn't take her duty very seriously. You know, spoiled rich girl. And just to give you an idea, even the way she dresses is not the way you expect a Disney princess to dress like. It's more on the edgy side. She's not afraid to show skin and all that, and she's not very nice. And to straighten her out, her father engages her to his best friend's son, and his best friend also happens to be a barbarian chief. And on contrast to that, her fiance may be a barbarian, but he's polite, he's kind, he's gentle, and very open to new ideas, and has new ideas to offer to the table that are surprisingly innovative. And he seems to have taken a liking to the princess, but the feeling's not mutual. All in all, it's a story about how you can't judge someone by also their lifestyle, because yes, the prince is the barbarian, but between the both of them, the princess is the one who's not very civilized.
I love it. I can't wait to see it, and we'll definitely have to have you on when we talk about when you get the books finished for those two as well. So be happy to have you promote those on the show.
Thank you. I look forward to getting to that point, but first things first, I got to wrap Jekyll and Hyde up and get started on Cupcake War Machine, let alone finished on it. For now, the only thing you'll find on Cupcake War Machine are recipes from my own repertoire, though I also am open to sharing the recipes of others if they're willing to reach out to me.
Nice. Couple years back, more than a couple, we did a webcomics What's Cooking cookbook where we had like 60 comic creators that gave their recipes and their artworks for like a panel of comic of them cooking, and then like the other panel was like the recipe itself. So
I'd like to see this, actually.
Here was the cookbook.
Oh, awesome.
And so
that looks like fun, actually. I like that idea. And
yeah, so
a lot of people don't take into account that webcomics can be used for mediums like this, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like things like that. That was Davidson. And
though, of course, my recipes are for dessert only or maybe savory baking, but yeah.
Yeah, no, we
don't expect to find a lasagna recipe in there.
We also had a traditional eggnog from the 1800s as well.
Wow, that's actually impressive that somebody can get their hands on that.
Laura Innes from the Dreamer comic. We had breakfast, lunch, dinner, desserts, and drinks, both alcoholic and non-alcoholic. So, good times. And speaking of barbarians, Legend of Bill. So,
Legend of Bill. I've actually read that one. That's a comic that outright impressed me. It started off as being not so serious and just all fun and games, and in the end, it became very deep. And
Yeah.
usually, when comics change their angle, that's usually was something that doesn't sit well with me. No offense to people who do it, but in that specific case, I actually liked the way it was done because it felt very natural and like it was well planned out and always meant to be. It wasn't just tacked on because the author suddenly decided, I changed my mind, I want to go in this direction.
Yeah, no. Dave Reddick is definitely a talented writer and author, and all around good guy as well too.
Yes, I take my hat off to him.
Yeah. I've been fortunate to interview a lot of great people, and this interview is going actually very well. So I'm enjoying what you're bringing to the table when it comes to your opinion, and of course your expertise when it comes to writing and character creation. So it's very
flattered,
so
and that means a lot coming from you.
Um,
Thanks a lot, Kurt.
Oh, you're welcome. I do have 4 more questions for you, though. This is a little more introspective of your personality, so you can think deep on it, or you can answer whatever comes off the top of your head. And I'll just switch the camera here.
Go ahead. Ask me anything that comes to your mind.
Will do. Everyone has 1 or 2 people that kind of inspire them on their path to where they are today. Who was that for you?
Well, it's got to be 4 people for me. 2 of them are comic writers themselves. They are Stan Lee and Rebecca Sugar. Stan Lee inspired me that as long as you live and have an imagination, go ahead and keep writing. Don't let your age, your life, or whatever curveballs throw at you stop you from doing what you love. And then there's Rebecca Sugar, who taught me that art begins and ends with love and with you and your identity. Don't try to be anyone but yourself through your writing, and never mind the very special episode trope or the very special person. We're all special. Let's show that in the most natural way possible, including in our writing. As for the 2 people who are not writers themselves, they are my husband and my son. My life experiences with them and where life takes us together inspire me a lot in my writing. They fire up my imagination, and they give me the confidence and the faith to keep on going, even on the days where I question myself a lot if there's even a point to what I'm doing. Just a pat on the back, or a single kiss on the cheek, or just him turning his head to look at what I'm doing on paper or on the computer, and he turns and tells me, hey, this is good. That's the only thing I need to hear to let me keep going. They are my angels.
From a professional standpoint, you are finishing up a comic, which is always a great aspect for a writer and an artist, especially a comic creator. You are in the process of creating another series, and you have another one after that, which is wonderfully from a professional standpoint. Do you consider yourself personally successful?
Yes, I do. Maybe I may not be the richest or the most famous writer there is out there, but yes, I am successful because, first of all, I finish what I start, and because I dared to get into this, even though the odds are against me and probably will always be against me, because let's face it, writing comics is one of the most competitive trades there is. But I'm not the least bit intimidated, and I'm not concerned with what other people are doing. I'm going ahead and doing what I'm doing, even if my ideas are outlandish, weird, or something to laugh at. If just alone my title makes you laugh, to me, that's not a failure. That's a success, because that's what I'm trying to do deep down.
The reverse of success is failure. How do you deal with your failures?
I deal with them head on. They are what they are. You can't please everyone with your writing. And quite frankly, in my experience, there are some people who are just complete and utter contrarians. They live to always find something wrong in something, even if it's absolutely perfect. So these toxic individuals, I just move on from them. And even when I have failed in a way that's fair and square, but I just happen to just fail, I take what I learned from that failure and I just keep going. I see what it is I'm doing wrong and never do it again. It's kind of like how in my first book I realized my biggest failure was not putting in the backgrounds, not cleaning up my style when I should have. And yes, that failure does make me sad, but I've come to accept that that was just the way things were. I was starting. I stumbled and I just picked myself up, got up, and just got stronger for it.
You have the younger generation recently born in your household right now, but you also have the younger generation that are currently looking at your work and become inspired to becoming either writers or artists or creative in their own aspects of their lives. How can they inspire the generation that follows them?
My best advice to these young writers or writers to be is to just go ahead and write what comes naturally to you. Don't try to be the next Stephen King. Don't try to be the next Stanley. Don't try to be the next Rebecca Sugar. Be you, because that is what you are always going to be in your writing. You are not going to be Stanley. You are not going to be Rebecca Sugar. You are not going to be anybody that has already been born into the world. All you can be is yourself. So be yourself, be proud, and present the idea that comes to your head and stays there. Because let me tell you this from now, when you stop and look at a lot of the other ideas that have been done, like Superman, He-Man, and especially the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, they're all pretty crazy ideas too when you stop and look at them from a logical point of view, but they're great. People love them. They have even withstood the test of time. So never mind whatever negativity you're going to get or whatever people are going to say or whatever doubt people are going to try to present you with by telling you this idea is weird. Because you know what? Anything that's imaginary is weird. So don't just learn to become comfortable with it. Be proud of it, because that's going to get you far in your writing.
Your answers are beautiful. I personally enjoy
Thank you very much, and I hope that they do indeed inspire people of any age. Because let's face it, it's not just young people who get inspired to write. You get people like me in their mid-30s who decided to just stop doing what they hated and devote themselves to what they really wanted. And you shouldn't be ashamed to do that either. It's never too late to be yourself and to do what you love.
I agree. Yeah, it's amazing how a simple idea can inspire, a story, or a life experience can inspire a change in personality or a change in a viewpoint. Especially when it comes to being a creative individual, whatever, if it's video or comics or whatever. So, yeah.
I agree.
So, time flies when you do interviews like this because there's so much you could talk about. But I want to stop here because I want to definitely have you on when you start Cupcake War Machine.
Cupcake War Machine. It's okay if you...
I keep saying Cupcake Wars for some reason because I'm thinking of
just as a word of warning, there's already a show called Cupcake Wars. It's a reality show, so please, Cupcake War Machine. I don't want to get in trouble with anybody.
No. I'll do like a flashing thing saying Cupcake War Machine. Just go like that.
Yeah.
That being said, where can we find you on social media and any other websites that you have as well too, so we can see Jekyll and Hyde, as well as your future works?
You can find me on Twitter at MK Jekyll and Hyde. And there's Tumblr, which is MK Wizard, and also Instagram at MK Wizard. And I'm also on Facebook, but that's one of the least active places I'm on. So the best places to find me are Instagram, Tumblr, and Twitter.
Good stuff. Is there anything that I haven't brought up that you'd like to share with those that are watching and listening to the show?
No, I guess I've covered everything for now, or everything I can cover.
Fair enough. I thought I'd ask.
And I look forward to speaking to you again if the offer does indeed stand, which I hope it does, because I had a lot of fun talking to you, Kurt.
Oh, thanks. The offer will always stand for sure. This was a very entertaining interview. You gave a lot of wonderful insight, and I think it's for those that are watching this that are either just starting out on their next weird idea, will definitely get a lot out of this interview.
Thank you, and I hope that people do.
Well, I hate to say it though, but that ends this particular interview on Two Geeks Talking. Of course, you can find this interview with Mary and the thousands of others I've done over the past 12 years at tgtmedia.com, or you can find them on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/c/tgtmedia, or the website itself is Two Geeks Talking, which is the word two, not the number two. You can find me on social media at Kurt Sasso. I'm pretty much everywhere. And of course, if you want to be interviewed on this show, Twitter is usually the best way to get a hold of me at Kurt Sasso. Thanks again for listening and watching. Tune in next week for another great interview on Two Geeks Talking, where everyone has a story to tell, and it's up to me to help bring that out. Hey, all, Kurt Sasso here from Two Geeks Talking. If you like this video and these quick clips here, make sure you take a look at our YouTube channel, youtube.com/tgtmedia. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe as well. Hit the bell to make sure you get notifications, of course, from videos like this here. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching over the years, and keep listening and watching for new and exciting interviews with talented and creative people in the entertainment industry. I'm your host, Kurt Sasso. Thank you so much.